His letter, and we can't say minister didn't know, someone misled the minister, because I don't understand which angle are you trying to take there. The minister signed a letter, even if he said I didn't read the letter, I just signed it. It is his signature. It means he didn't do his own duties by making sure that he reads through the documents before he signs them. Is there any excuse why shouldn't we hold this letter against the minister himself as his own letter?
Well, it is the minister's letter. When I registered a complaint, a criminal complaint, minister is one of the suspects that I'm pursuing in that complaint I have, because he's the author of this chaos.
How far is that case?
The chaos. This is a real chaos.
Yeah. How far is that case where you complained about this?
It's still an investigation. I'm not part of it because I rely on the prosecution in KZN and the team investigating to brief me from time to time. But the progress they share with me 2 weeks ago, I was quite pleased with the progress that they're making. The minister owns a letter. He signs it, is his letter. However, if we're to fix the problem, it is my belief that we must go beyond the minister's ownership of the letter. With his signature, it's his letter. That's given. But we need to find out what led into him writing such a letter. When I speak to the chief of staff and he said the letter's been going back and forth, it is against the ground that made me to believe that someone crafted the letter for the minister to sign. Yes, obvious. If a person gives a gun to shoot and kill someone and you take that gun and you shoot and kill someone, it's your problem. But we need to find out who actually gave you the gun. So this is basically what I'm trying to communicate, that can we not just leave it with the minister? Let's go beyond, because we're going to miss problems that exist in the organization if we only deal with the outcome. Let's try and fix the real problem.
In this case that you are pursuing following this letter, minister is a person of interest, and you're saying the investigation is going on, they're getting briefing from time to time. Is there any arrest anytime soon, according to the briefings you are receiving?
It is my prayer and hope that by the time the 31st of December of this year comes, we'll be talking about the letter of the 35th of December last year in court. That's my hope.
Now, Minister, General, don't you think, and that's my observation, you'll tell me if I'm wrong, this Nkavinde went to tell, because you explained he's got a minister, his relationship separate from you with the minister, went to tell the minister, okay, let me start differently. I don't see anything wrong with you going to see a minister. It's actually part of your duty. It's your constituency. As one of the high-profile people in your province, it's always important to know where your high-profile people are found and who are they and all of that, so that if a call is made, you know how to respond to such a call. So I don't see anything untoward. But I think that, and you'll correct me, that Nkavinde told minister that I know the general of police here in KZN. It's my guy. You know, we roll together and all of that. And then he came to you and said, I know the minister is my guy. We roll together. So you're thinking you're going to meet the minister. And the minister is thinking he's going to meet the general. And he's not making you guys aware. Why? Later on, when a minister is supposed to appoint a chief of staff in the police, he appoints that guy because he thinks that guy has got a connection with the general of police. He's a former policeman, and it will make my work easy. Whereas a new minister of police, don't you think this guy played everybody in that space?
Yeah, well, I believe there was an intention that he had when he made us to meet, definitely, which I believe maybe that what benefited him at the end.
Now, General, was it not an overreach to say in that press conference that the judiciary is also involved? Because judiciary, me and you and all of us, We have a duty to protect it with everything we have. It can't be that a magistrate who has faltered wherever, because I believe if a magistrate has faltered, there is a recourse. We can take this on appeal and do all manner of things. But to use a judgment of a magistrate to then say judiciary is involved, I think it was a bit overreach. I get the point what we're trying to drive home, especially a magistrate as a member of the Judicial Service Commission. Judiciary to us is judges. We know magistrates is part of that. But when you are asked to give example of these judicial people who are involved in this wrongdoing and were given a name of a magistrate compared to what we had at the press conference, I think there was an overreach there.
Honorable Member, I had said earlier, unfortunately, you'll appreciate at the Madlanga Commission, there are two presentations that are done there. It's an open one and the in-camera one. If this ad committee were to adopt similar approach, perhaps maybe engaging the Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence, you will hear things that might shock you about that what you believe is a judiciary, which is judges, how the judge gets involved in the mess.
Is that your evidence, General, that in camera we're going to hear explosive things about judges?
Yeah, it's there.
Now, General, I want to quickly summarize some of the issues my colleagues will deal with. Do you know, or before I go there, when you realize the minister is not giving you an ear, the minister is not listening to you, and it looks like these things are proceedings, the same way you did when you were acting commissioner, did you try to reach out to the president, or did you reach out to the president and tell the president that there is this illegal activity that is about to happen and please intervene as the executive authority?
No, unfortunately, I did not go to the president. I will have relied on a national commissioner to play the role that I played when I was in that position, to reach out to the president.
But do you think the president was aware that the PKTT is going to be dissolved?
I cannot say that. If I listen to what he said in the recent media interview he did in Northern Cape, it makes me believe that he didn't know. When I met with him after my press briefing, he acted as a person who was not aware of what was happening.
Do you know the relationship of President and Paul O'Sullivan?
No, I don't know how related they are. I just don't know that Mr. Paul O'Sullivan speaks a lot about being in contact with many people, including the president. So I have not gone deeper into establishing the type of relationship they have.
Does he have do you know of any relationship between him and one of the president's advisors?
Mr. Paul O'Sullivan? No, not that I know of. I know that there is a lot of talks about engagement, I think, with Mr. Chauke and amongst others. But again, it's something that it's communicated out there, but I never really got deeper to investigate the type of relationship that is there.
Through our own intelligence, were you able to establish that Paul O'Sullivan is a member or a former member of M16?
Well, I have not necessarily got the briefing in details from intelligence in that regard. I've had the talks about it. I don't have the full briefing. What is of interesting is that he's got citizenship in 3 countries, and that makes me wonder. And he seems to have been a person who got angry when he was disturbed by being removed from the ports of entry in South Africa, the main port of entry at the time, which was Johannesburg International Airport. When he was removed, he did not take that kindly. So it will make me conclude that there were some things that were happening in that airport that made him angry.
So we'll be correct to say Mr. Paul O'Sullivan is one of the rogue elements that are destabilizing SAPS and wanting to capture every senior police officer at SAPS, and if you don't cooperate, he start engaging in blackmailing activities.
With no doubt, I'm going to invite the Parliament, through the structures of intelligence or structures of security and whoever structures you can come up with, to look at the time of Mr. Robert Mapra Turner as the head of IPD. bank movements, money movements, the meeting venues, the cell phone locations where they meet, how they engage in terms of investigation. I'm saying this to the members because it is that which Mr. Nkabinde told me, who is now a chief of staff at the office of the minister, that operations of IP were planned, coordinated, and executed at Paul O'Sullivan's house. That was his words to me. So I'm going to require that such be investigated in details, because the phone will put Mark Bright in this place, will put Paul O'Sullivan in this place, will put Nkabinde in this place, and others. And when that investigation is conducted, nobody can deny it, because we'll know exactly that all of them have been operating, guided by Paul O'Sullivan. And that is on one side. And I'm interested to know, honorable members, as to who is the author of the report that was produced when the city of Johannesburg, as well as the National Commissioner, wrote to the State Security asking them about the legality or otherwise of the gadget that were bought by the city of Johannesburg at the time when Jairus Bia was in charge of the security in that place. And who is the company that supplied that gadget? And how was that gadget sourced from the country in Europe where it comes from, in the UK? And I want to also recommend an investigation against the purchase of the similar gadget that was bought by DPCI back in 2010, where Jairus Bia was working at DPCI at the time. Whether such was bought legally, who are the supplier, and who's the manufacturer of the things. And I'll want the Parliament to check every financial records of Mr. Paul O'Sullivan and all the individuals I've mentioned, and so that we're able to trace and draw a conclusion whether is Paul O'Sullivan a clean man or is an agent. So I think based on that investigation, we'll be able to conclude whether is he indeed a clean man or he is what has been said in public, an agent. If he's a clean man, why he does what he does. If he's an agent, who is he working for? But it is time that this country must not sit back and be run by Mr. Paul O'Sullivan. And if government fails to act on it, the men and women in this country, they're going to take it upon themselves to do something drastic on it. And it might not be what this government wants to do, because he has gone too deep in showing that he's got control all over. And maybe lastly, I might ask the members to say, if we ever heard of any report that is deemed to be classified, that's supposed to expose the wrong that has happened, such reports be interrogated. And one of them, IP has a responsibility to investigate criminal things. When you hear the Minister of Police says, I've got a report from IP that is classified, you need to ask yourself a question. You are not an intelligence structure. What do you do with a classified report that you don't want to release? As IP, what is that report doing in the minister, first place? Because IP deals with the criminal case docket. Whatever you investigate must get into the case docket, and that docket must go to court. Why will it go to the minister and the minister goes out public and say, I've classified this report, I won't make it public? So these are things that may need to be checked, because it is when the system of government fails. And you have worked hard to create a legislation to try and protect yourselves, the citizen of the republic. But if it's manipulated in that fashion, that the minister can just decide, I'm classifying this, I'm not releasing it in public. Perhaps you need to ask, do your minister that classifies a document, do you have a security clearance yourself? So how do you classify something if you yourself are not vetted? You don't have a security clearance. So what gives you basis to classify something? So those are the typical examples that I'm talking about that might need to be checked. The problem in the law enforcement is so serious in this country that's why I'm saying, if these things are going to be centralized in the National Commission, then it might not be fixed. There's too many problems that exist. And if we start looking at how can we decentralize some of the things, we lessen the risk against this country. It's a serious risk, honorable members. So that's why I'm going to end on that response.
Well, General, I don't understand why would a bully like Paul O'Sullivan, who is a person of interest because he's suspected to have brought some certain gadgets in the country, is now involved in the destabilization of the security cluster, is so deeply involved. Why is the National Commissioner, or including yourself, not opening a case on crimes against the state? Because when you are engaged in the destabilization of the security cluster, you are a national security threat. And therefore, a case should be registered against you, and he must be investigated and be arrested. Because he has been going on for a very long time. He has become untouchable, he has become a bully, and it looks like everybody is so helpless around him. What makes it like that? Why are we not opening a case at that level as police? If we have this kind of information to verify the authenticity of the things we hear, so we legitimately investigate him, especially on crimes against the state.
Yeah, well, I think majority of the things that are happening that Paul O'Sullivan is doing at the head office, and the authorized people that are closer, that are affected, that should be assisting us in such investigation, that should be acting on it. Myself, I have not necessarily pursued anything because I never really had much details of what. I will hear him talk about things. What triggered me, first time that drew my attention to him, when he published through the media, he published the photos of Gerald Patlane, who was the acting national commissioner. When he published the photos of Gerald Patlane's house when it was still under construction. And then I started asking myself a question, if this house was finished about a year ago, how did he get hold of these photos? That was very interesting to me, that it's not like we're investigating now, and you go to the place, there's construction, you take photos. But he shows a building, a structure that was under construction a year or two ago. And he started with a complaint later, and he says, this man was building a house of this amount, and this how he was paying for the house, and so forth. If the Paul O'Sullivan is going to come and say the National Commissioner, and I said to the National Commissioner, we need to open a case against this. If Paul O'Sullivan is going to say the National Commissioner owns a property here and here and here and here and here, how does he afford all these properties? How did he get the information? So we always say that you get, I'm sure majority of citizens in South Africa experience that. You get a phone call from a company and they market, they want to sell you something. And you ask them, where do you get my number from? They say, no, we got it from marketing, whatever things. The reality is our communication, our contact details, our personal information gets to be shared with third parties without our authorities. That's a reality. And nothing much happens on it. We see it with the marketing happening on our phones, and then we see with people that act to be activists like Paul O'Sullivan that are going to start publishing things that you wonder, how did he get hold of these things? And if those things exist, why didn't you open a case and get them registered? But it doesn't talk about the case. And what disturbed me the most, which I said to the National Commission, I don't understand how you keep quiet about this. When the National Commission was appointed, Paul O'Sullivan came out public and he said he was given the names of people to profile. He himself said that the presidency gave him names of particular number of people to profile whether they are suitable or not. And he made the recommendation who is suitable or who is not suitable. And some of us didn't know that. When the National Commission was appointed, it means his profile went via Paul O'Sullivan to profile. So if that is true, it therefore means the president had invited him to come and give advice at the presidency. And that becomes a serious risk for us. So, but I said to the National Commission, it affects you. If it was me, I was going to open a case. But I don't think this thing should be allowed because this man is saying he's now making a decision as to who becomes a National Commission, the police.
General, I want to follow up on the drug cartels. Every time we're told of a big five, and a big five, my understanding is that it's a drug cartel. And when we are asking for the names, we're told of Matlala and Molefe, who are now in jail. But they're not in jail for drugs. They are in jail for a gun that is connected them to some celebrities and all of that, Meta and all, for Transnet, DJ somebody, and how do I conclude that these are the big five of drug cartels? Because they're not charged with drugs. And like you said, the drugs are a big problem. Not that others are not a big problem, but the drugs are the ones that are going to destroy the young ones. And when we are asked about this big five that deals with drug cartels, we are given 2 people who are in prison, but they're not charged with drugs. How do I conclude that indeed these are members of the drug cartel?
Well, you remember the details can be presented by the team as a covert operation. They have the details about it that I might not be able to talk to it. However, a strategy of arrest, of an investigation of a case, you might arrest a person, although in this case you are labeling them as part of P5 and P5 is involved in this drug syndicate. We might not arrest them for the drug specific, but the bigger investigation that talks about drugs is there, but the charges that we are putting against them are something else. It's a strategy we employ in the police to keep people behind bars until we are ready with a bigger case and we throw it in. A typical example is the same strategy we employed in KZN when we were dealing with the AKA case. And we arrested a whole lot of them for other cases, just to keep them in custody until we were ready with the main case when it was matured, and we could identify all of them. And then we started charging all of them for the murder of our celebrities. Otherwise, they were already in custody. So similar strategy we are doing on these ones. We are taking them for other cases. We are adding any other case, because I've got many cases. Safe to say, with respect to the case of the death of that employee at Vereeniging, Mr. Swart, it had nothing to do with drugs. It was tender issues there that involved Mr. Mliv. But the murders of these DJs is drug related. When the picture you're going to see when the matters gets to court is that this one thought he's clever by stealing this one's drugs and he starts selling them, and this one then killed him. So not to say the victim is a clean man on drugs. He died because of something that he did wrong to this one. So we have a consignment of over 200 million rand, for instance, if I use it as an example. The police in the organization is that you identify exhibit, you book it in the SCP-13 register in the police station, you leave it there. If it's such a big thing that you transfer it to another safer storage place, which in this case will be a forensic lab if it's drugs. But it so happened that in KwaZulu-Natal at one stage, there was a consignment found in Durban. And our laboratory in Durban is at Manzimtoti, which is about 10, 15 kilometers away from Durban. And it did not have a facility to keep such consignment of drugs. And the next place where we take these drugs to is Pretoria, where we keep these drugs in the bigger storages. But it so happened that case that the drugs were entered into the SCP-13 register of a police station, booked out the same time, and transported south of KZN to Potchefstroom, and locked into the offices of the PCI that had no one guarding it. And during so-called alleged load shedding at night, there was a break-in in a big storage facility. A break-in inside that facility, there were bags of drugs, and there were also other drugs that were not associated with the ones that came, the consignment that came in, and there were firearms, illegal firearms that were also stored in there. But when the break-in happened, the only thing that was stolen was this specific consignment of 200 million rand of drugs, and nothing else. You arrive at the crime scene, you will expect the crime scene is being cleaned, everything is stolen. But you arrive there, you find an AK-47 standing there, then you say, but why didn't they steal this AK-47? Then you realize the mission was not the AK-47. The mission was drugs. So they came to collect what is theirs, and they took it away. They left everything else untouched. And that made us conclude that it was a plan breaking. Because the question we are asking TPCI, why did you allow these drugs to come to your offices? And there's no one guarding. And you have load shedding, and this thing happened during load shedding. So we believe, the information tells us that those drugs taken there ended up in Johannesburg are part of the drugs that caused about majority of the murders that happened in Johannesburg. Because people took it and they started stealing and did not deliver them where they were supposed to deliver them. And that's what caused the unhappiness from some of the people. So, yes, we're not talking about the drugs on the arrest of Mlife, but drugs is part of the problem that leads into the murder. The charge is a murder, but the reason is a drug that comes as a result. So there are many others. The ones that we are not mentioning is because we have not charged them with anything. That's why I'm not comfortable to even mention them. But they are there.
Second last, General, MPs involved with these drugs cartels and criminal syndicates, because we are MPs sitting here, and when we're told MPs are involved with drug cartels and criminal syndicates, we start asking ourselves, who are those? And that's what the public is asking itself. And, General, apart from the registering a criminal case, as an MP, if I'm engaged in unethical conduct, there is a committee called Ethics Committee where I can be reported. I don't have to be investigated through intelligence or anything of that sort. Why has there not been an effort from your side or from anyone who's involved, who knows these MPs who are involved in drug cartels, criminal syndicates, report them to the Ethics Committee, including the judges, because I get worried when judges are subjected to covert operations. It's a threat to our democracy. Any judge that gets involved in wrongdoing must be reported to Judicial Conduct Committee and will deal with that matter at that level. Not to be told that there's a judge who's going to come before me in the... I'm very sensitive around judges because once they have threatened me and you, we are no longer safe, because that is the last arbiter. They are the ones who must safeguard us. So why are these people not MPs with drug syndicates, judges with drug syndicates, criminal syndicates, MPs Ethics Committee, judges JCC? Why are they not reported there, and we left them in the hands of the covert operations and not anything above?
Yeah, well, majority of these things happening in Gauteng, Honorable Member, and the team investigating in Gauteng has not necessarily involved me. I got to share information, I get to know information because they are briefing me. And what I said earlier, what drew me into this mess was the closure of the PKTT, which was a KZN. Had they left it alone, I wouldn't be sitting here today, because I would not have been privy to what's happening there. I became aware because they were updating me, because they had my members there, and suddenly there's a closure of the team, and then I get to ask questions. That's how I start slowly. Although they are feeding me with information, but it remains a counterintelligence information, so they're not giving me the full picture. They are drips and drabs, and I'm also not asking questions. I ask where there's a need, and they give me what I need to know. So how are they handling it going forward within that investigation? I said earlier, it's an investigation that is not only handled crime intelligence alone, but is within the intelligence structure. That's how elevated it is. So how are they going to handle it further? I trust that they will follow those channels so that they can be able to deal with it. There are instances that the PKTT have registered complaints against presiding officers in KZN as based on their conduct that we have done. So when we talk about, yes, we use the name judiciary because we wanted to indicate the seriousness of what is happening. I said, unfortunately, some of the information that is at hand, it's a covert information, recordings that are there that I might not be in a liberty to just communicate. I listened to them. That's why I was able to say, okay, here's everything. This is a conclusion that I reached, to bring the attention to the leadership to say we have a problem. The MPs that might be implicated, and I must say up front, as I said about the minister, I'm not in a business to protect people, but I must also acknowledge that majority of the people that end up being implicated, I spoke about the letter of Minister Mchunu of December, the majority of people that get implicated on things, they arrive there by default. They're not aware that they are getting there. So if you're going to be a political party or an MP and you get a financial support from someone, and the person who's giving you this financial support is not disclosing the intentions, you're going to get hooked. By the time you open your eyes, you are right in the web. You can't escape it. So sometimes it comes in that fashion without you paying attention. You'll invite, you stand outside your house, you call an Uber car, and the Uber come and pick you up. You have no clue who the driver is. He arrives there and he loads you in the car. You have no clue what's in the boot of the car. There could be a dead man inside, or there could be arsenal of firearms, there could be drugs in there. But when the police stops in the roadblock, who do they arrest? The driver, including you. Because we are found in this consignment of drugs and the dead body. So by default, you become, we can say we're a victim, but we're a participant to a crime. But you're not aware that you're participating to a crime. So there are many MPs that might fall victim in that fashion. But there are some of them, few, that deliberately are part of the problem, and knowingly so. So we are dealing with those as part of the investigation that we are doing. So it's not that, if we're to use percentage-wise, I cannot say that all the MPs are in the wrong, but definitely I think Parliament took a right decision by demanding to know who's financing political parties. But what maybe is missing is to know who's financing an individual MP. Because the MPs within the same political, they've got ambitions. They fund their own resources to do political campaigns so that they get into leadership positions in the political party. How they go about getting this money can be part of these criminal activities that we are talking about today. And they might not even be aware themselves because someone is helping them to elevate them to a position. So the party discloses, but the individual doesn't, because it's not everything that they disclose. So it's some of those things that might need to be looked at going forward. Thank you.
General, thank you very much. I just want to, in a respectful way, disagree with you on the decentralization of police, and especially the examples you are giving. Those were tribalistic divisions that took place in our country, where you had Leboa police, you had Venda police, you had Zulu police. It can't be that we decentralize the police and we go back to the ethical divisions of this country. We are a unitary state, and therefore we seek to unite and become one thing irrespective of ethnicity or the color of your skin. What you are suggesting may even play in the hands of racists who are now calling for independence of certain provinces away from our own country. And we think that perhaps you need to re-look into it. I agree there shouldn't be one individual with so much power. But how do we democratize it without decentralizing it? I think that's a debate we can have even beyond these walls of Parliament. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. Honourable Member, I agree. The decentralization might not necessarily mean exactly to be like the homeland, as it were. I use that as an example. But then I went further and I said, there are many countries, first world countries, that are structured like that. That one country has got a federal system and they've got the local system in terms of influence. And certain examples, honourable members, was that to have a person at a national office to worry about an assault case in a locality, it's something that we might have to look at whether can a local police that does not have to account here be able to carry such docket. So those are the things that we might need to start discussing. Whether is it something that falls under the provincial government, whether it's something that falls under the region, if it were, we have to discuss. But the ultimate, what I'm talking about, for instance, maybe using this opportunity, honourable members, is that we adopted the culture of organizing ourselves as an SAPS in line with the district model that the president came with. I've argued in the BOC, Board of Commissioners, many times that this is a wrong structure that we've adopted. Because we are structured to our point, our end result is court as a police. So however we organize, we must organize around the court, not organize around municipality. So it could be part of the things that says maybe the provincial delegation of this power might not work. Maybe we must look at how the NPA is structured, must look at how the justice themselves, courts are structured, because they remain national, but they are kind of independent at the provincial level with the jurisdiction of how they operate. So when we set up our own structure as a police, instead of having district commissioners, we need to look at this district that covers at times 2 or 3 court jurisdictions becomes a problem for the performance of the police in terms of taking matters to court. There's some of the things we need to engage on, but research is needed. Whatever I'm proposing will need to be researched. And we're not going to make a reference to the homeland security, but we have to make a reference to the first world countries, how they do policing, and what is good. And that is simple, more about efficiency, not about ethnicity at all. I disagree. I also agree with that one. We can't use the tribal issues that we did before. And the national legislation must remain the one that is a founder, regardless whether it is centralized. We must still account in terms of the legislation.